Hey, everybody. Can you believe it? Like, well, here I am, Brenda B. Bailey in the Theta Power Hour. And it's like, I think it's almost 70 outside and completely different than last week. Had to cancel it and reschedule it. Um, and kidding. And I think it's so, what's the right word? Synchronistic, because Elise is actually rescheduled because she had internet issues when we were supposed to do this like 2 or 3 months ago. So, here are the things that we can't control and we just go with the flow and it's all good. So we are going to get started here. And just a reminder for y'all, the format here is that I always say I know great people. You're going to learn a lot. They're, influencers, experts in their field. And we're going to have a great time. And then I just listen up and we do a little theta healing work at the end that pertains to either our conversation or maybe something that Elise gave me, like in her prep work. However, that is, we just go with the flow on this. So I am excited to introduce y'all to our feature speaker this week, Miss Elise Smith. And she is a faith-based business coach who empowers Christian women, entrepreneurs, to reach their sales goal by partnering with God, empowering their mindset, and teaching them to implement biblical business strategy. She has been coaching for over 10 years and loves to see her clients reach their goals and answer their calling by helping them to lay a strong foundation in their business and gain closer relationship with God to build their business in the Lord's way as opposed to the world's way. So welcome, Elise.
Thanks so much for having me, Brenda.
Absolutely. And I think that probably some people would be like, Brenda, what do you and Elise have in common? Well, we both work with God. I'm going to tell you that right up front. And I've often said, and I tell like my students and my clients, God has the best marketing plans and they don't always make sense because of what we see out there or what we think that we ought to be doing. So there are many ways to connect with God. There are many ways to approach this. I was just going to say, I pretty much do the same thing as Elise, except that I don't have biblical business strategy. I'm just going to tell you that right now. So I love this because I feel like it's so important because I think that what happens at times, and then I'll get to the questions for people, and we're talking women here, so we'll also, but I think for men as well, is that it's so important to vet a coach and to be able to have the same values as them and approaches, and that it really, resonates with you. And so I love that this is Elise's niche and that this is available for people because it is so important. And there are so many, choices that we have. So just had to go on the record for saying that. So Elise, we'll go ahead and get this started. How do you help your clients overcome their inner dream stealer voice that sabotages their efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're all really familiar with this negative voice inside of our mind that just tells us that we're going to fail or we're not good enough and all those crazy thoughts, right? And it's very, very common for us to have a great business strategy or even life strategy, but we sabotage our efforts with that voice that we buy into. And that's the biggest thing, is that that inner dream stealer, I like to call him a he, because I feel like that's the adversary. Nothing against men, right? But it's the adversary that comes in, and basically if we listen to that voice, it really will steal away all of our dreams. And so the fact of the matter is that what we seek, we find, and we know that from the Bible. And so when we are kind of just having this proof shoved in our face that we're a failure, and the adversary will bring up stuff of like, third grade, you failed your first test or whatever it is, right? Huge long list of all these failures. So then of course you feel like a failure, and it's like so shoved up in our face that we can't see anything else. But the trick is to move that aside and to focus on what we want to see in ourselves. So even just as simple of going from feeling like a failure to a success is then you start looking and using the same tool that the adversary is using on you, come up with the amount of proof that you have to show that you're a success. Because when we start seeking that, and especially when we ask God to help us find that, then we really do find it. There was a while where it was like, even though I moved up, 6 positions in my the company that I used to work for, in 7-10 years, I just didn't feel like a success. And so my husband started doing this thing with me where every single day he'd be like, what was the most successful part of your day? And it was such a cool trick because it helped me to start really looking for those things in my day. And you can do that with any kind of trait, but especially the opposite of what your inner dream stealer is trying to convince you to think and feel about yourself.
So I think it's really cute. It's like, so her husband tricked her in a positive way, right?
Exactly.
I sometimes we see like, oh, I was tricked and it's like something bad, but he tricked her in a positive way.
Yeah.
And I think that that's also, it's so important because I think at times, it's almost like, I think of, what would Jesus do, right? Because God is very forgiving and God is very much like your biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's have the voice of God when we're looking at ourselves versus, whoever that other voice is, right? Or however you want to, he, she, my first grade teacher, whatever that was, right? A parent, however that is. And then just be able to, look at it from that. Because I think that people get confused and they feel like that God is the one who's judgmental and God is the one who is looking negatively on them. It's like, just you heard it here. If this maybe is your first time, that's not true.
Yeah.
And that's why, if you think who's got, I always say, I did a lot worse than the people who negatively affected my life when I was younger. What they did was nothing compared to what I've done to myself in my adult life. Which is why I have 13 different certifications in integrative healing, by the way, because I was really looking for what can I do to change this? What can I do to not be influenced? But it's also just really simple things like what Elise is talking about in looking what was good. What am I grateful? How is this? I said during all last week during the whole snow thing, because literally I packed up a dog and a cat, which I was just telling Lisa's like being with babies, like packing up babies. And the electric turned on within an hour after I left. And I said, there's a reason why I did this. And I'll just let it unfold and see what ends up being the benefit of it instead of being like, oh, I can't believe that. It's like, there's a reason that it happened. And I'm just going to trust and have faith that it ends up, turning out. So, Elise, what is the one way that people can increase their divine guidance from the Lord?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question because we don't always think about that. We almost feel like it's kind of this passive situation of that God is going to speak to me more when he wants to, right? But I teach my clients to partner with God, meaning that there's responsibility on our side and on God's side. And we kind of enter into that commitment with each other to be able to grow whatever calling that God has given us. And so one of the things that was the most powerful thing for me to learn when it comes to talking with God or your higher power or whatever that looks like for whoever's listening here today, is to ask a specific question. So many times we pray and we say, okay, God, help me find those people who are looking for me, or help me to reach this sales goal, or whatever that is. And when we ask like that, and I never even thought about this before, I had this aha moment, is that we are putting all the responsibility on God. Like, okay, you need to just show me and tell me how, or bring those people to me like that. We don't even mean to do it that way. But when we ask a specific question and we change that from, help me to find someone compared to how can I find that person, what's really neat about that is that when we ask a vague question, we get a vague answer. And when we ask a specific question, we get a specific answer. And that's because of the RAS, and I'm sure you know this, the reticular activating system in the back of your head, right? Is that our brains are actually designed to answer questions and to solve problems. We know what this feels like at 3 a.m. when you're like trying to solve something and you cannot shut your brain up. And so when we give ourselves and God that specific question of how can I find those people that I'm looking for? And we really take that into account and brainstorm with God, is what I like to call it. Then we not only open ourselves up for kind of that law of attraction where we can start seeing those opportunities that maybe we hadn't seen before, but we also align our will and almost God's will, kind of like finding that middle ground of being able to say, He's working on it for me, I'm working on it for me, and therefore we're going to find an answer for it. So asking a specific question is key to being able to increase divine guidance.
Absolutely. If you are manifesting, if you are, praying, it's all the same. Meditating, it's all the same. Even in Think and Grow Rich, it says that people only pray when they're in trouble. Right. So, then there's this sense of desperation.
Yeah.
I say the same thing to my students when they learn Theta Healing, is that check in with God or your divine power, whoever, again, if God or Lord is, throwing you off here, there's still good information here. Substitute the word, the title, that or label or whatever you want to call it that fits for you. And I'm going to invite you to consider why they are bothering you, right? Because it just is. Everybody, how I address my divine power and how Elise addresses her divine power, it's all the same. It's all the same energy. It's all the same. So I'm just going to say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Keep listening, because we're saying some really good things here. But that's what I tell like my Theta Healing students is like, check in with God like on a daily basis. What do I need to know? Right? What do I, and that is a very open-ended question. But then you practice having that relationship like every other relationship, right? And then you can ask the really specific questions and get the real specific answers.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how you talked about how sometimes we hit our knees when things are going wrong, right? And I call that catastrophic consulting. Like that sometimes we use God as a catastrophic consultant more than a business partner. But if we have that time with him every single day, then we get that guidance well before the crash comes, right? And
And
so
sometimes we don't even get the crash
yeah,
because of
exactly.
doing this.
Yes, exactly. So I call that my daily daddy daughter time, because I feel like God is my heavenly father. And so I love that time with him every single day where I can connect with him. I can be in his word and learn from him, and not just learn and then go and implement, but take a moment to just think about what it is that he has to tell us, whether that's meditation or prayer or just sitting there, after you've closed out all of the hundreds of tabs in your head, like try and clear your mind, right? And just listen to what he has to tell us. Because so many times we ask and then we go do. And that's great, but there needs to be that step in the middle to be able to see exactly what it is that he wants us to do. So I set my alarm for 3 minutes, because that's just the magic number for me. Grab
It's
my
a
pen and
magic number, period.
yeah,
Anyways. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So then I grab my pen and paper and I write down any thoughts or impressions that come to mind. And then I choose a couple of them that I want to, take action on today or this week, and run with it. Sometimes it's like having a to-do list from God every single day. So I can't go without my daily daddy daughter time.
And that I love, this is the thing. What I love about Theta Healing is we teach people to go into a theta brainwave. That's why it's called Theta Healing. When you go into that, that really allows you to be in that space where you don't have to shut all the 20 million tabs down in your mind, because your mind is open. And of course, anybody who has any type of meditation or prayer practice, they know this. This is, where we're all heading. I could just teach in 5 minutes how to do it though, but it's where we're all heading. And that's the thing. It's It doesn't take an hour. You don't have to light candles and incense and sit on, or, kneel, or, and I always said I would get the best ideas like in the shower while I'm doing dishes, or something about water for
Yeah.
me. And I think there is for a lot of people that just kind of, it's maybe it's clearing, or I don't know what it is, but, or meditative, or when I was walking my dog, like I would just, because I'm not really thinking about anything. I'm
Mhm.
just enjoying where I'm at. I'm in a mindless place.
Yeah.
And we also hit that brainwave when we're just waking up or going to sleep. And so I have like somebody who keeps their phone nearby with an EMF sticker, right? But keeps the phone nearby and has the recorder so they can just record it and then go to sleep. So it's not, again, not, rolling around in their mind. And, a lot of us, right? Just FYI, at 3 o'clock in the morning, to between like 2 and 4, but around 3 o'clock in the morning is the quietest time across the world,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is why people typically will get woken up at that time, or they, are awake at that time, or however that works for you. And I always tell people, then just say, like, what do I need to know?
Yep.
Right? Because I'm telling you, like, no noise, that's when you get that answer. So a lot of people, like, Elise didn't know that. She was like, she said the word, but it, again, 3 minutes. A lot of people just don't take that first step because they think they've got to start off with an hour or 3 hours. And I always tell people, start off with a minute and work
Yep.
yourself up to 3.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can be that easy to be able to do that. Elise, what is your why?
Yeah. So, at first my husband and I, we've been in business for quite some time in different kinds of adventures and things like that, right? And we prayed about what it is that we are supposed to be going for. And this is going to sound really funny here, so bear with me, but we both got the exact same number from God, and that's $53,588.33 a month. Or more. We're okay with more. And we're on track to be able to do that. But it's interesting that we both got that answer. And so, one day I was having a really, really, really hard time in business. Just, you get all of those no's and you just feel really run down. And, we all have one of those bad days that it's like, ugh, this is not worth it. I'm done. Right. And so I was driving and I was having kind of that windshield time with God where I'm just chatting with him. And I asked him, I was like, okay, why do you want us to make $53,000 a month? Like, that's one, so strange that it's that specific. And two, yeah, nice cars, good house, like all of that. That's great. But that's not what motivates me. It's deeper than that. And so, God was like, okay, if that's not what motivates you, go deeper. And so I did. And I asked myself, okay, why am I supposed to make more money? Because I could settle for 10,000 at this point. Like, I'm good with that, But it was needing to go deeper and deeper and just asking myself why, like 5 times. And what happened was, and this is kind of a little bit of a backstory for you here. My husband and I, we have been struggling with unexplained infertility for, over 13 years now. And just heartbreaking, right? To want to have a child and not be able to is just one of the worst tortures in the whole world. But you learn a lot through those trials, as we do with everything. And I was talking to a coworker at the time, and she had just gotten a doctor to be able to fund her IVF procedure, which is kind of the highest procedure you can do when it comes to fertility treatments. And it's about $16,000 even with insurance. And so this was just the most amazing miracle for her to have that funded for her, because there wouldn't have been any other way that she could have. And we were just jumping up and down for joy for her because of this opportunity. And as I dug deeper and deeper in this $53,000, it was more than just the money. And that's how it is for all of us, right? As we dig in deeper, we're going to be able to see that there's an impact that we want to leave in the world. And just, it hit me like a ton of bricks, and just the tears started swelling up in my eyes and everything went blurry. And, you start getting a hot cheeks and everything. And it was just at that moment, I realized that not only am I meant to serve women entrepreneurs to help them achieve their goals and dreams, but also that when I do make that much money, and in fact, we're even in the process, even before we do make that much money, to be able to fund one woman's IVF every single quarter, to be able to help fill their aching arms too. And that why gets me up every single morning. It gets me to be able to not only push through those difficult times, but to enjoy them along the way, because I know what the pain is. You know what I mean? When you know what the pain is, you can help people through it even more. Not saying we should go looking for it, but it is a very tender mercy of the Lord that we get to experience that before we get to help other people with that. And so that is my why, is that that's my goal. We're working with another company right now. We're kind of looking for some different companies to start donating to. So we're really, really close to starting that up. But and eventually we want to create Kaylee's Foundation, which is my future daughter's name, just in her honor, because I just feel so called to do this. But when you're able to grow your business, that's what you can do, is you can fulfill that passion and that calling that God has given you. And so that's why I do what I do.
Love it. I love that, because, who knows that pain more than you, and who wants to be able to help somebody? And I always look at people and say, you're not selling to people. Selling to people is being in service, not being in servitude, but being in service. And one of my favorite sayings, and it's from Suzanne Evans, I heard her say it one time at a talk that I heard or something, is money's not the most important thing, but it touches everything that is.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So, you know, that's the thing. And what people don't understand is that, the freedom and the choices that come with it. But even just like, last week, no amount of money in the world was going to turn on my electricity or water, right?
Yeah.
No amount of money in the world usually will help somebody if they haven't taken care of their health. We've seen that even with people, people who've had lots and lots of money. There are just certain things that we need to do, but it does give you freedom. It does allow you to be very philanthropic and decide, where do you want to. And what was really interesting is that my friend who I went to go stay with my animals last week, we watch very different TV, right? And she's much deeper than me. I'll just say that. So we were, watching, which I love, the history of the Black Church on PBS. So good. Watch it. Anybody out there? So was great. And then I was like, oh, we need to watch this. But then she also had this program about the indigenous people of the world and their pain. And I went, because I know like what my first nonprofit will be. And I thought, oh, this will be my second, because they were all talking again. I always hear people talking about all of, like what all you have to go through in order to be able to overcome this and everything. And I'm like, or you can do Theta Healing.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm like, or you could do Theta Healing. So I just was like, oh, and maybe it's me. I need to have a conversation with God about this, but it's the likelihood of somebody wanting to create a program and including it. It's going to happen. I feel like it needs to happen if I'm going to do it, right? Like I need to do it and let that lead for me, and then be able to include everything else to be able to do that. And I just, because I feel like, Elise, right now, especially, we're almost hitting a anniversary mark on being in a quarantine and being during this pandemic. And people have really had to really look at themselves and figure out what's important. I feel like that these have been, not that we, like, let's just change that belief. Do we have to have that happen in order for us to be able to get it? Maybe, maybe not. But why don't we just make it maybe not? And then that way we can just be willing. And I've always said this, and no comments on this. Only if you agree with. I mean, you don't have to agree with me, but don't be mean. Is that honestly, when people are in need, it is our community and our churches that rise to the occasion for them versus our government. I'm just going to say that. And so thank God for those, and thank God for people who want to help and who want to support people. It's just, how everything is. So Elise, tell us, what is the one technique that you can give the audience to increase their confidence?
Yeah. So, I think this goes into that inner dream stealer piece of things, right? Is that we have to really be aware of what's going on up here. It's so crazy. I read a book from someone, I can't remember the author right now, but she was talking about how it's like having a 2-year-old just run rampant in like a glass shop or something like that. Sometimes, like, we have to make sure we're getting that really in handle for that, because the fact of the matter is that that's that first step, is awareness, is that we don't know what's going on, because we know that our thoughts lead to our emotions, and our emotions lead to our actions lead to results. But it starts with those thoughts. And there was a time, before I met my inner dream stealer, there was a time where I didn't realize that I could even control my thoughts and emotions. I was quite older when I realized that, and I was like, well, nobody ever taught me this. But it's interesting because it starts with that concept. And I have some clients who, sometimes they even wear like a rubber band around their wrist or whatever it is, to just check in with themselves every hour, if that's what it takes, to just say, okay, what empowering thoughts and what disempowering thoughts am I having right now? And especially when you feel like emotionally crummy, asking yourself, what are the thoughts that are going through my mind right now to help me to feel this way? And so that's the number one key, I think, is just being aware of our thoughts and what's going on. And so when it comes into confidence, is that you look at those disempowering thoughts and you say, okay, let's play this out here. So for instance, I used to be painfully shy, like just painfully shy, awkward, and all that crazy stuff, right? And I belonged to a network marketing company a few years ago, and my husband and I, we knew that we needed to get out there and speak to more people, because that's what they talk about, show more people, right? And so we signed ourselves up for a networking event, like a different networking event, almost every single week for a whole year. And I just remember sitting in the car with my husband, and we'd stare at each other before, we're supposed to walk in. It was like, do you want to go? No. Do you want to go in? No. and I had to check in with myself and be like, okay, what kind of thoughts am I having that would keep me from not wanting to go in, wanting to go in? And it was very much like, nobody cares what you have to say, and what if you start talking to someone and you completely forget what you're talking about, and then the conversation just ends and it's all awkward and you're like, okay, see you, bye. Like, you know what I mean? We have these worst case scenarios that we play in our head. And this is so sad to admit, but for that whole year, we went to 0 networking events. The whole year we signed ourselves up and we didn't go to any of them. And so finally it was that last year. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done listening to these thoughts in my head, and I'm done believing what those thoughts are telling me, because it almost always comes down to, you're not good enough, right? And of course the adversary would attack your purpose and who you are, because that's the most strong thing that you have as a daughter of God or as a son of God, is that that's your divine purpose and the divine, heritage that you have. And so of course he's going to attack it and make you think that you're less. And so being aware of those thoughts, and then choosing what empowering thoughts you want to have. That's the thing, is that sometimes we just say, okay, I feel crappy and I want to feel this way, but I don't really know exactly what I want to feel. So if you want to feel confident, what are some thoughts to help you feel confident? What would a confident person be thinking and acting and doing right this second? And then you faith it till you make it, right? You say, okay, Lord, this is what I want to feel. This is how I want to think. And I'm going to take steps in that direction. And you follow the Lord's promptings on how you get there.
That's great. I always say, this is such a good, juicy conversation. So please share, please comment, tag somebody that you think will benefit from this, right? Because I always say this information will be there. And, the work that we'll do here at the end, that can be, it's just as effective on a live as it is on a replay, because I know a lot more people watch the replays than that come to this live. So it's all good. So again, share, tag. This is really good information. And what I teach, right, with Theta Healing is that is so true. I don't know that people are aware. I always say the book, The Secret, I think made people aware of how negative they were.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about that book.
Yeah.
And what we tell people to do is when you have that thought, because we either say it or we think it or both, right?
Yep.
You just cancel it and send it to God's light. So whoever your divine power is, just cancel it and send it to God's light. Because, and then redo it, rethink it or re-say it. And if you have that awareness of just doing it, when you hear something, just cancel and send it to God's light, it will really, you'll stop being that you won't have to do it as often. You have to do it a lot in the beginning, but you won't have to do it as often because you're just, let me change it in the moment.
Yep.
Because as with prayer, we're in constant prayer, whether or not you know it, right? God is watching, God is listening to you, your divine power, whoever that is, they are keeping an eye on you. And they're allowing you to be the self-fulfilling prophecy that you want to be. So which one is it that you want to do? Because and you want support in it, put out what it is that you want, not what you don't want, because the universe and God don't understand they don't understand not, they don't understand no, they do not even try, doesn't even exist. So, I always say, if you say be like Nike, either do it or don't, or Yoda, whoever you want to say, either do it or don't, but there is no try. So typically try means you're not going to do it. Because I always say, just think about it. If you've married, in a relationship, have children, what happens when they say they're going to try to do something? It does not happen. It's the same way for us as well. So it's making that commitment, knowing that you're supported. And you can just take little baby steps, right, Elise? Just take little baby steps and you'll feel that support. You'll be like, oh, right? Because with Theta Healing, we say you're co-creating with God. And a lot of people can't wrap their head around that because people are like, well, God's here and I'm here. And it's like, well, that's not really where God wants you to be up here, right? So it's like you want to be in that co-creation. And that's one of the ways to do it. And I think, I'm not shy, I'm an introvert. So I get about going to the networking meetings. When I first started, oh my gosh, I was just being in a crowd of people. And I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, right? So I'm used to the parades, the fiestas. I have a big family. I mean, a small family gathering can be 50 people for my family. So, it's just, I know this, but I don't have to like it as an adult. But it was just being able, as I'm sure Elise would agree, you feel the fear and you do it anyways.
Absolutely.
And usually, right, anticipation is worse than the actual event.
Yeah.
And doing it allows us to make it a habit, to do it and not, again, it's the fear of the unknown. So once we've done it and it's not so bad, me going to one networking group made it much easier for me to go to a newer one, because I already felt comfortable in one.
Yeah.
And that's with anything. And as an entrepreneur, I have a friend who kiddingly says, and I say this all the time, who says, if you want to know what you need to work on, get in a relationship. I say, if you want to know what you need to work on, start a business.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's why a lot of entrepreneurs fail, because they're not willing to walk through the fear. They're not willing to be uncomfortable. And the only way that we up level in our business is to do something new, to do something for the first time, and to feel uncomfortable in doing things.
Absolutely.
It's the only way that this is going to happen.
Yeah.
So last question here. Elise, what do you wish that every entrepreneur truly understand for success?
Oh, I would definitely say that if I could like bottle something up and give it to every single entrepreneur, it would be belief. And belief is that one thing that's like, it's so intangible, right? But it's belief in themselves, belief in their business, and belief in God that He wants to bless them in that. And that's the thing, is I think that especially kind of in the Christian world, or really any kind of church kind of environment, is that a lot of times we get these feelings like, or these sayings of, be content with what you have. And that's, it breaks my heart every time that I hear that, because absolutely we should be content with what we have, but we should always be striving for more. Because just like we talked about earlier, that money equals impact, money equals influence. And the larger that stage is for you, regardless of what your business is, then the more impact you can have, and the more light that you can shine in an ever decreasing, ever increasing dark world, you know what I mean? And so we need to remember that we are, it doesn't matter what your product or service is or what you're doing in your life. It really is a calling that you have been given from God, and that you get to help build up His kingdom through that calling that you've been given. Because there's so much more than just our product or service that we're offering. We're offering transformation, regardless of if you're selling, makeup or coaching or whatever it is. You're offering something that they really do want, that it's going to make their life better. And so God wants to bless you. And that's the thing that we get stuck on, is that I want you guys to all of us to have 100% belief in ourselves, because we have the ability to do it. God will give us everything that, there's a quote of, God wouldn't give us anything in that dream in our hearts if He wasn't willing to give us everything to make it come true. And so we will be able to achieve when we do that work, when we go through those painful moments, right? The personal development piece of it. And then knowing that you've been called into that specific business that you are in to help build up God's kingdom in that area of your vineyard that you've been given. And then third is that knowing that God really is going to bless you. He's going to open up those doors, but we have to take those steps in the dark before the light can come on. So belief is the one thing I wish I could bottle up and give to every single person: belief in themselves, belief in their business, and belief in God that He does want to bless us.
And I love that, because I feel, I often say we hear things and it's very inspiring. And what I feel like is the connection between, hearing these words that Elise says, and they're beautiful and they're impactful, and actually doing it. Theta Healing actually fills in that gap, because Theta Healing will remove what prevents people from just being able to do it, from just being, right? Because that's what God wants us to be. And so in that beingness, not that, doing, not that, and again, not that I'm not advocating not taking action, but we have to be and be able to hear, right? And be able to forgive God and ourselves, and maybe, somebody else who wasn't a positive influence.
Yeah.
And Theta Healing is so impactful in that, because we can do it well in prayer. We can do it deeper with Theta Healing, to be honest. And that it's so important. Like, non-forgiveness is a huge deal. And especially we're the hardest on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and I always say, one of the biggest results that you get from Theta Healing, and this is the most I've ever talked about Theta Healing, but it's because we get to talk about God and faith, and it's so relevant to what we're talking about, is that, we make a mistake and then we judge ourselves for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a fear that we'll make another mistake. Well, guess what? Self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe that, you're going to do it. And
Yeah.
instead of just saying, what was the gift? What was the lesson? Why did I have to do it like this? That type of thing. What did I learn from this so that I will not repeat the mistake? And that's why it's just so important. And what Theta Healing, I always say the biggest thing about Theta Healing is that it prevents us from being reactive, because that's where we get into trouble,
Yeah.
is that we're reacting instead of, sitting still and allowing to be in that co-creation with your divine power, whoever that is, to trust and have faith. I mean, everybody kept saying, oh my gosh, Brenda, with the, the weather and the electricity and the water and the internet, you're fine with it. And I'm like, well, one, I don't have no control over it.
Yeah.
So, what can I do to enjoy it? How can I be with it? How can I, again, really sharpen my problem? I have really good problem solving skills, but really sharpen them, right? And just being okay. I'm one of those that loves to watch. I always say this. I'm a Hallmark Channel gal, whether or not you know that about me. Love Hallmark Channel. And it's kind of how I just zone out at the end of a long day. I just love, again, I love to end my day with something positive. I love to end my day feeling good. I feel good throughout the day, but I don't want to have to think about it. So I get to just watch Hallmark. And when the electricity was out, so the internet, the water, everything, and it's pitch dark, and I just have a candle, and I'm just sitting there, and I got to see how far I've come, because that would have driven me crazy in the past. And I just enjoyed the quiet and the peace, and went to bed early, and it was okay. And so it was, I had faith, right, that it was just, it would work out, it was going to be fine. um Maybe I had to reschedule a few things, didn't do the co-live last week. I mean, there's nothing, again, everybody knew what was going on. It's not like I was playing hooky or anything. I just could literally get on the internet, right? Just like Elise a couple of months ago, it's like, well, what can you do? She's like, my internet's down. I'm like, okay, like, we'll reschedule. I'll just do a replay. It's all good. What can you do other than say, I'm sorry, that's it, and usually we're the ones who feel the worst about it, right? The person on the receiving end is just like, it's okay, you're just like, are you sure? It is what it is. So great conversation. Again, like, comment, share, tag somebody that you feel like, again, after last week, there are a lot of people that need to hear this conversation. No joke, and again, there are still people, my goodness, there are still people in Oregon who are without power. And that's been 2-3 weeks. I don't know. It's been a long time. So we keep them in our prayers, however that is for y'all. We send them good thoughts. And again, I think it's that deal why like a 28-day gratitude practice is so impactful, because it's kind of like what Elise was talking about, like her husband was tricking her. We start out the day thinking about what we're grateful for. We, end the day with what we're grateful for. And then all of a sudden good things start to happen.
Yep.
Because we're not putting that negativity out. So I took some really good notes, not really good. I took some notes on, they're good. And on some things that I feel like that we would want to address, right? To change. Yeah. So one is always, if this is your first time, I always make sure that people have 3 beliefs in place. So what Theta Healing does, it's just a meditation or a prayer. It's working with God or whoever you believe your divine power to be. It's all good. We are going beyond the mind, because our brain, we only use 11% of our brain. So to rely on our brain to do everything, your body is a miracle. It's got a lot on its plate just with that. We don't think about it, but it's got a lot on its plate. But it actually bypasses the conscious and subconscious mind, which is very important, because the beliefs on a cellular level, trauma, non-forgiveness on a cellular level, those changes are allow it to be instantaneous, and that people can see the biggest difference, because they're not having, because again, we're very limiting. That's why it's also great to connect with God, because God is not limiting, or whoever your divine power is, we are.
Yep.
Right? It's like, I just saw a post on Facebook that was like, when you come to, it's like, you had this really like vexed face, like when you come to realize that it's not that, what is it? That it's not that the abundance is all there. It's you that are limiting what you're thinking with that abundance, right? And so when we get that, it's like, oh, okay. And it's really funny because with Theta Healing, because I am a certified teacher with it, I have a lot of women, I'll also say women because it is primarily women. I do have a few men that have very religious backgrounds, and they love Theta Healing because it just improves their faith. It allows them to be more impactful with their families and to be able to help them and themselves. So it's not really about them, right? It's about who they can help, which is usually their family and friends and their church and their community. So, and people always ask me, Brenda, especially when they're like thinking about coming to take the class, they're like, how has this impacted your faith, Brenda? And I was like, oh, I thought I knew what faith was. Now I've just had the greatest experience of it, that it's just and again, we can do it quickly or we can do it slowly, however that is, whatever works out, because we just know what we know and we don't know what we don't know. Like what Elise was saying, when I finally figured this out, it's like, well, we get it when we get it, when we're willing to ask the questions specifically to
Yep.
get the answers,
Yep.
then you're ready on some level, or you wouldn't be getting that information. So we're going to bypass the brain. We're going to make changes on a cellular level, and that's all that gets to happen. Again, this is a very complementary modality. It works well with everything, religion, other modalities, whatever that is, coaching, whatever that is. And it's also very respectful. So the only way that you get work is you say yes out loud. So when we say yes out loud, that tells our brain, it tells God, it tells the universe, yes, I would like that. So if you don't want it, don't say yes. But it's social media, right? So I tell you, do it in the comments as well, because we're doing it in both places. So say yes out loud and say yes in the comments. So we always make sure the 3 basic beliefs are in place. I want an instant healing. I deserve an instant healing, and instant healing are possible, which again are miracles and magic and all of that, but instantaneous, because what I do works very quickly. And if you don't have those beliefs in place, well, then it's going to take a lot longer for you to benefit from it. So Elise gets to be my prompter here for y'all. So if you would like those, just say yes out loud.
Yes.
And again, like, share, comment. We want to see those yes comments. Tag somebody. Let's see what I got on my list here. One, let's change and an obligation, and we'll also use habituation. That was a new one that came from a colleague of mine, which I love. So we're going to change the obligation, because it's either that we're obligated, which means no choice, or that we just have made it a habit. For whoever you believe to be your divine power to be judgmental, right? And forgive ourselves for being judgmental, and forgive your divine power, right? Forgive God. If you feel that God has been judgmental, which we know is not true, but maybe you've projected that. So we just need to go ahead and make sure we just cover all our bases. We want to change like the obligation to be that inner dream stealer. Often say, I talk about the doubter, and people doubt and then they go into fear, whereas the doubter is intended to let you have doubt so that you come up with a backup plan in case something happens, right? But all of us automatically, let's change the obligation to go into fear, right? That fear be the what always appears. Let's change what prevents us from being aware. Let's change what prevents us from learning from our mistakes. And let's change what prevents us from asking specific questions. So if you would like those, just say yes out loud.
Yes.
And then the second round is, let's change what prevents us from feeling the fear and doing it anyways. Let's change from God's perspective, Creator's perspective, what it feels like to be on the other side of fear, right? So if I know that on the other side of fear, it's like heaven, right? Like if it feels really relief and good, like, okay, well, let me go through that so I can get on the other side. And then let's also change what prevents us from knowing that God blesses us. Let's change what prevents us from trusting that God blesses us. So it's not just knowing, but trusting, like having that faith, like God blesses me. And then last, it's like, let's just change what prevents us from believing what's for our highest and best good. So is that believing in God or your divine power? Is that believing in myself? Is that believing in my project, right? If they're all for our highest and best good, it's, let's change, like, let's just open that door so we can consider it, right? So if you would like those, just say yes out loud.
Yeah.
Nice. So just to let y'all know that in the post, I have a link because Elise has something really cool to share with us. So tell us about that, Elise.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had the pleasure of working with so many different amazing coaches, book coaches and speaker coaches and people who have helped me in my business. And so this March 8th through the 12th, we are actually going to do, it's called 5 Divine Tools to Increase Your Revenue in 5 Days. And so you're going to learn from amazing experts in the field where you're going to learn these tools that maybe you hadn't thought of before, such as writing a book or becoming a speaker, really getting onto that stage that you feel you're called to go there, and even branding so that we can take everything to the next level for you here in 2021. This is a free live workshop that we're doing in my Faithful Ladypreneurs Facebook group. So just click on the link, get registered so you can get your workbook so you can come join us and learn all about how to take your business to the next level with these 5 divine tools.
And what is your tool that you're going to be? You're on the first day, right?
Yep. I'm going to be talking about how to partner with God in your business. So not just that catastrophic consultant, but really partnering with him so that you can take that throughout your entire week when you're learning these different tools and figure out what is going to be the next best step for you.
She's setting down the foundation for you.
Mm-hmm.
So the link is there in the post, just so y'all know. And then when you get done with that, on the 22nd of March, I'm doing a 5-day elevation, what most people call a challenge, but it's not challenging. So I don't like to call it a challenge. It's an elevation. So it's a vibration elevation. And you can register for that on Activate Your Inner Money Magnet. It's in the post as well, up above. And that is so, it's going to be great. So if you've wanted to have an experience with Theta Healing, not sure how it would work in your life or in your business, or know somebody, a coach, a consultant, a strategist, an entrepreneur, because I always say this is a tool that everybody needs, if not to share with their clients, just for themselves, for a support for yourself and your family. So that's free as well. So I hope that you will, have a lot of goodness on the 8th through the, 8, 9, 10, 11, 8 through the 12th. And then you have a little break and then join me on the 22nd. So thank you again. And just so y'all will know, we do this every week, same time, same place, always having a fantastic person. So next week is Elena Schwartz, and we're going to be, the topic is the changes needed to move forward and upscale your biz. So I always love how things always often piggyback. This was a great foundation for that. So once again, Elise, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Brenda. This is amazing.
And great information. So again, guys, like, tag, share, because this was really good. All right, we'll see you next week. Thank you guys.
Thanks.